have a question for you. Imagine that you're in a car as a passenger and you're on the motorway and it's late at night and you've got a long distance to go and you're getting worried because you think the driver's getting sleepy and he won't pull over. He insists on carrying on. So what do you do about that?
Try and entertain them? Oh.
Sorry?
I was going to say, try and entertain them, keep them awake.
Yes, that's a possibility. It might work, particularly if you're on a topic that interests him, it'll kind of wake him up. But it's not probably the best solution. The best solution is to get him to talk to you, not you to talk to him. When you have an inflow, too much inflow, listening, tends to make the person sleepy. Outflowing wakes them up. You'll notice that a hypnotist, when they hypnotize you, they do all the talking. They don't want you to talk. That would wake you up. In fact, if they were trying to hypnotize you and you acknowledged every so often, like you might pause for breath on a sentence, and then you acknowledge, even under your breath, that would probably tend to wake you up. So you don't want him to be listening to you, you want to be listening to him. And that will wake him up. Yeah?
Right.
And that could possibly save your life. The other way this area could save your life is you're driving on your own, and yes, you get tired, you should pull over, but you don't want to. Well, if you won't pull over and get a 10-minute rest or something on a lay-by, what you could do is sing. If you sing, you'll wake up. There's no way you can fall asleep while you're singing. I've done it. I've driven late at night and I sing. Fortunately for others, nobody's there. But it will wake you up. Yeah? And it's the same if you're in a lecture room and the person's talking and talking and talking. If you find yourself getting a bit bored and then getting sleepy, under your breath acknowledge, yeah, I got that. Kind of mutter little replies or something to yourself. Yeah, that could help wake you up. Okay. Right. So this is somewhat to do with how alert you are. And on the subject of being alert or being sleepy, I'd like to talk about yawns. Now, there was an interesting event that happened to me way back. In around 1956, and I'd come home, I'd get off the bus, and there was a little bit of a walk before I got to my parents' place where I was living, obviously, and occasionally, it's very quiet out of town, peaceful, I'd be walking to the house and halfway there maybe, I'd yawn. Now this could be early in the evening. And I used to wonder, why am I yawning? I'm not tired. It's not late at night. What is it? And I got suspicious. I think there's some little thought that's crossing my mind and it's triggering a yawn. I need to spot it. And that at first wasn't easy. I wasn't used to doing it. But eventually I did. I began to spot it. And I noticed that the thought that I had, very slight whisper of a thought, was a better thought than the one it displaced. It would have displaced a thought. And therefore, something was happening and it was waking me up. So at that point I figured that because I became more alert with the yawn, getting more oxygen in, my brain cells are being more active, they want more oxygen, so they cause me to yawn. But what caused my neurons to get more active was probably my mind getting more active or opening up its space, not being closed down. When you get tired, your space goes down mentally. And so I realised that yes, it's a better thought than the one it displaced, whatever that was. And it didn't mean it was the final answer to anything, but it was better. So then I began to use that. So if I had two alternatives and they both were equally matched, which do I go A or do I go B? Which one is the yawn? Has the A got a yawn? No, nothing. Okay, it's the B got, yeah, I get a yawn. Okay, that's the one I do. And that worked quite well for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm training the body to be an oracle. And at first, you have to get used to doing it, but eventually you can train the body to actually be quite responsive to things.
Mm.
And you get, in the end, you train yourself to pick up on the little thought, even when you have an unexpected yawn. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Now, there are some yawns where this wouldn't so much apply in terms of getting a big insight, but it still shows that you are becoming more awake, and that is if you are late at night and it is sleepy. Now, people tend to associate yawns with getting sleepy. It's not quite right. If you graph it, how sleepy a person is, and there's the graph, and they're getting more and more sleepy, and that's them going on more and more sleepy, unconscious, or whatever you want to call it, less alert. While that's happening, they won't yawn. What happens is the graph starts to go up because they got slightly more alert. Now they yawn. So you're getting sleepy and the cat walks in the room, catches your attention, extroverts you, quite often you yawn. Does not occur as you're getting more sleepy, only as you go up on the graph. So therefore, if you are very sleepy, it's just that you became a little more alert. What's interesting to me very much is when you're already very alert and you yawn. And that usually means there's a little thought there that's worth tracking. It's worth spotting what that is. Yeah. Mm. So I even use it in counselling. Yeah. If the person I'm counselling suddenly yawns, okay, what was the thought just before you yawned? And the first time I do this on a person, they can sometimes be very surprised, what? And then they kind of look, oh my God, and it's usually quite revelatory sometimes. Sometimes it's a little one, sometimes it's quite revelatory, yeah. And so that's a very useful technique for you to have in your toolkit. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so anytime you're doing anything else to do with the workshop, where you're looking for something, maybe an earlier step, or have I overrun, or is it something else? If you get a yawn, spot it. Yeah, it may or may not be all the answer to what you want, but still spot it. Yeah, it's a very valuable tool, and it's allowing your intuition to come through.
So the yawn coincides with you drawing in something into your system, or a new idea, maybe?
It's, what's happening is, because this concept or this idea that crossed your mind was more invigorating or more enlightening, if you enlighten someone, their space goes out, so to speak. And
causing a vacuum.
Yeah, and when that happens, it's going to trigger your neurons to fire. And they need more oxygen, and then naturally you will yawn. I mean, there is the phenomena where you yawn and somebody else will yawn. Yes, it's catching, yeah, but it still doesn't alter the fact that you pulled in more oxygen because something woke you up or something.
Because I feel we have a very negative connotation on yawns. I mean, I've noticed myself judging people who are yawning quite badly. If I'm speaking and they're yawning, I feel... That's
in society.
Yeah. So I should be...
It's
should
mislabeling.
be the opposite.
Yeah, it's mislabeling. It's true that if you getting very bored,
Mm-hmm.
you may end up yawning. Why? Because you're getting bored and now you're getting less aware. But every so often you do a little resurgence, because you don't just go down smoothly and fall asleep. There's ups and downs as it goes. So every time you kind of wake up slightly more, you have a yawn. Yeah. Now, teachers can get this wrong, where they're telling a kid something, and it might be he's on the verge of getting an insight, and there's a yawn, and then he's told off. No.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, because it's an autonomic thing. It's not some under conscious control.
That's right. Yeah.
I was just wondering if there would be a method for gaining insight by deliberately yawning. I mean, you talk about sighing as well. It's similar. What's the relationship between yawning and sighing? Because when you get an insight, you go, ah.
Well, that's the sighing is a relief action. Yeah. And that's where you are shedding something negative. Yeah.
And right, so yeah, so it's not related in that way. They're not the same.
Not exactly the same, no. But they do. They
They
have an element where the yawn is your attention's more on the expansion side of thing, but it must have displaced some other thought. It might be you were more pessimistic, and now you suddenly get this thought which is more hopeful. Yeah. So it will have displaced pessimism. Yeah. And the sighing is more to do with displacing the negative, right? Letting go of it, letting go of something.
Expiration and inspiration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So it's quite an interesting tool. So you can use it, but you can't use it when you look at two items and you know this is the one to do. And maybe you don't like that answer, you hope it's the other.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. No, you can't easily fool yourself. Yeah.
I mean, so you're inviting yourself to yawn. Do you have that thought when you do it?
If you invite yourself to yawn, it's possible that you will get a bit of a yawn. Probably won't be a big one, but it almost is like anticipatory that you're going to wake up or become more alert, and therefore it is quite possible you could trigger a little yawn. I don't think you get any big one. Yeah. When you get one of these spontaneous yawns, you spot what the thought is, and sometimes you could think, I'm glad I found that, and then you get the bigger yawn. Yeah, so that can happen as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because your intuition's got a much wider awareness than you have at a conscious level normally. And this is a way of accessing. Yeah. So it's a useful tool.
Yeah, especially as it's considered such a bad thing.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah. That's why in counselling I have to, it's a good idea that I mention it to people, because otherwise they get a yawn and they try to stifle it. And that's not, yeah. I
know this is a thought, I'm just thinking all these different involuntary things like sneezes, do they perhaps all have some psychological meaning, or could do?
I believe there's a percentage of people, I don't know, well the percentage, it might be 10%, they sneeze if they look at the sun. I have that. Yeah. I also have it in terms of if there's a virus trying to get hold of me, it hasn't succeeded but it's trying, if my skin temperature drops, maybe I walk into a room where the air is colder, that will cause me to sneeze. But now I've got advanced warning, so usually I can avert the cold that way. Just take my appropriate measures for it and it doesn't occur. Yeah. The other interesting thing, somewhat related to inflows and outflows, grief is a release of stress. Yeah. But also, so is laughter. That's why laughter is very good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you laugh, you're really in a way shedding something. So it's in a way it's expulsion. It's, if you like, a rejection. Yeah. People think it's funny. They think of laughter as rejection, but you are throwing something up. So if there's a joke, and you interpret the sentence to mean something, and then you realise there's a flip side to it, you now accept the new version, but you have to push aside the original way you duplicated it. Yeah. So pushing that aside can cause you to laugh. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I hope you'll find some of these useful. Okay, thank you.